Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the P-LotPodcast. John here, joined once again by the main man himself, Michael Angelillo. Michael, how we doing, man?
We're doing good, man. I will say, pretty bad beat last night for the NBA Finals, for sure. Um, yeah, that really sucked, I have to say. That felt like as hard as I've been rooting for the Pacers this run, as they've taken down all the terrible teams that they need to be taking down in their way. Um, that one for a game that was not a Philadelphia sports team, and I guess honestly not like a direct rival as the opponent. That was about as hard as I've taken a loss as just like a neutral sports fan.
How bad did your parlay get crashed because of it?
It's just like the parlay sucked with that. But also after game two, I had a big bonus bet that I just put on the Pacers to win the whole thing. Was feeling great, and that just a collapse of epic proportions combined with some slighted officiating, and it's a tough one. That was a tough
I had,
watch.
dude, I think everybody, I think all the viewers and listeners can definitely sympathize with you in terms of the bad beats with some of the playoff games.
Oh, for sure. Some of
Um,
the hockey bad beats I
yeah,
can
I
imagine.
was, yeah, like, dude, when you said bad beat and then you mentioned your parlay, I immediately, and you definitely remember this. I had a touchdown parlay of like five guys, and the only guy that didn't hit was Cortland Sutton. That was because instead of catching a touchdown, Cortland Sutton threw a touchdown to Bo Nix. Like
The
what?
little things, man, that
Like
just
totally unnecessary. Like I was like, I think I even said to you, like,
yeah,
was that necessary?
yeah, that was it was just showing off, truly.
Right. And then yeah, and
But yeah,
yeah,
everyone's got their share of bad beats for sure. You know, but Phillies are playing better. They're a confusing bunch at the moment. They really are. They're hard to get a read on, especially with some injuries, but they are like we expect. They're probably going to be up and down for pretty much a bulk of the regular season, and you hope they just kind of start hitting their stride by like
yeah,
September.
I mean, you got Alec Gwynn or Tony Bohm just ripping off all these singles
A
and
lot of singles.
pissing people off because the result of all of his singles. Yeah, it's I don't know, man. Like when I was told that he was going to be the next, he was when he was drafted by the Phillies third overall. We were told he was going to be the next Chris Bryant. I thought it was going to be like 2015 MVP Chris Bryant, not the like 2021 like declining Chris Bryant.
Yeah,
But
it's just he just doesn't have the power stroke. He doesn't pull the ball in the air as much as
right,
he
we'll
should,
talk. I mean,
but
we'll talk
we'll get
Phils.
to the Phils. But
We'll
let's
talk
start.
Phils.
Where do
There's
you want
some
to start?
good. There's good. There's some bad. I do think though there needs to be some sort of infusion to kind of help stave off these like really horrible stretches that they go on. I think everyone kind of agrees with that. Um, but yeah, we'll talk Phils. But I want to talk about what's going on in hockey and in hoops. Let's do hockey first. Off-season news. I mean, you're seeing like the Mitch Marner sweepstakes. There's kind of formulating. The Stars are trying to offload some guys. The Flyers are, they're kind of in the background. We saw like Ekblad's definitely gone from Florida. I think he's probably going to be someone the Flyers may target to improve their blue line because the Flyers only have three viable defensemen at this point. But yeah, let's talk about the Stanley Cup. So, Michael, so far we've seen through four games. Like, is this going to be like the greatest Stanley Cup of all time? It's or at least
It's
one.
it's it's looking like that. You had the one blowout, but you know, two games that were virtually identical but opposite ways, where uh, the away team is up a goal and the home team ties it in the waning seconds of the third period to then ultimately lose to the away team in overtime. Truly, like some heartbreaking, earth-shattering losses. I can't imagine, tying a game like that or getting tied again. It's been really, really good. And we talked about this last episode where, um, not having Mike Emmerich has kind of hurt its momentum, and I still think that's true. Like, if you've had Mike Emmerich calling all these
Yeah,
games, I
it's
think
like honestly, dude, it's almost like the like whoever's broadcasting it. I'm sorry, I'm just blanking right
yeah,
now.
Kenny Albert and TNT. Like
Yeah,
it's just
TNT. It's almost like TNT's like this is a bar sport, so like the announcing doesn't matter.
I guess. I just think that, you know, honestly, you're getting some people saying how great this cup is, and I feel like a lot of people that are crowning it are tending to be younger people where they didn't grow up with it as heavily, like Mike Emmerich, Gary Thorne. Um, and I think that, if it were to be Mike Emmerich, like peak Mike Emmerich here calling this, I think a lot more people would be more willing to make that grandiose statement of this could be the greatest finals ever. And listen, it still may be. It's been
I don't
fantastic
say
these
it is.
days.
I'm just saying it's looking like. I mean, listen,
It's
man.
on its way. It's certainly on its
I
way.
mean,
That
Connor McDavid. I mean, if you look at like pro sports right now in all four major sports, like the greatest athletes in each sport, like Connor McDavid has to be top three, right?
yeah, no, McDavid. I mean, it's yes, but it's everybody, honestly, that's playing in these games. Both teams are super poised and like they all have the big veteran savviness. And listen, they were playing each other in the cup last year. Both these teams have been here. You're seeing new veterans that were added, Marchand at the deadline for the Panthers making a huge impact. Throughout their entire playoff run, but really in these cup finals. It's just it's been very, very entertaining. Games can flip in a blink of an eye. It was 3-0 Florida at the end of the first, and, like, that's a hard spot to be, Down 3 without scoring, entering an intermission on the road, that is tough. That is a tough way to bounce back, and not only, did they bounce back and tie the game, but then you take the lead with, like, 6 minutes left, and it feels like, "Okay, game's over." You know,
That's the
it was
backbreaker.
Yeah, like, it's in that it gets hockey's very much like this, where you get to a game that's let's say, 1, it's like when it's 3-1, you feel like next goal could win it, and then the Oilers score, make it 3-2, and it's like, well, you feel it's like a guarantee that they're tying it after they make it 3-2. Like that, it just feels like hockey's always been like that. 2-goal lead that gets to a 1-goal lead. You could bet the house that the game's gonna be tied at some point, and they
Oh
tie
yeah,
it.
man, totally.
And
Like
then when you get to a point of a tie playoff game, and you're getting to, like, under 10 minutes, under 8 minutes, it really feels like next goal is gonna win the game. And then the Oilers got it, and it felt like, "Okay, game over." And the way the Panthers were getting chances, and yes, it absolutely felt like the game was over, and then they somehow, some way broke through and tied it. It was remarkable.
I don't feel like watching these two teams. The only other time in any sport in any kind of like 7 game series in sports where you see two teams that are so different, but can like literally it's so even. They're so evenly matched, but built different. This is before your time, but when like the Spurs at the height of their powers would play the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, when Shaq and
Mhm.
Kobe were the two best players, arguably in basketball.
Right.
Yeah, when they would both play one another, that's what it kind of felt like watching these
Yeah.
two teams play because the Panthers are so deep. They have such a
Yes.
deep team, like those Spurs teams. No offense
Mhm.
to Tim Duncan and like Tony Parker and like their squad,
Ginobili, of course,
but
but
they
it's
had
just
like 7, 8 really good players, and then you had the Lakers, which were top heavy with two great players, and then several solid role players.
yeah, and that's what the Oilers are. I mean, you watch the Oilers, they have stretches of time where it's like, okay, here's like a 3-minute shift for Draisaitl and McDavid, and it's like, that's absurd. And then they go sit for like 28 seconds, and then they're back out there, and it's truly like, and then they can handle it. It's not like they're worse because of it. They can handle it.
Yeah, definitely, dude. I think it's great. Uh, really wish you keep I keep watching this, and you're just like, dude, if Michkov can be like 70% of what Connor McDavid could be, I would be so happy.
Yeah, it's we're so overdue for a great Flyers playoff run like that.
Yeah,
One day, man.
and shout out to my buddy CJ, Penn State guy, talking about Gavin McKenna potentially committing to Penn State.
Yeah,
I
it
told
looks
him
like he's going there uh, at a high school.
yeah, so they'll rig the draft so he goes to the Penguins and stays in state.
Hmm.
Anyway, let's speaking of rigging,
Uh,
NBA Finals. I'm okay.
listen,
I'm only like half kidding, but it does
yeah,
feel, dude. Come on, it doesn't it feel like whenever you see the name Scott Foster, like what
the
comes to
extender,
mind?
man. It's the extender. It's been memed, but there's truth to it, and I think we saw it again last night. It was very reminiscent to Sixers Celtics Game 6 back in 2023. Tight the entire game. Sixers started to pull away, and then there was a collapse. And the collapse was some missed shots, some bad turnovers. But like the underlying thing to really ensure that all momentum was ceased were some questionable calls, some bad calls on both sides. We remember the last 2-minute report, it was like 14 calls or non-calls that went in favor of the Celtics, and there was only like 4 or 5 or so that went in favor of the
Yeah,
Sixers.
and it like it's yeah. And the thing that was just so surreal about that is like when we see like baseball does this reports, well, not baseball officially, but you see like the umpire
There's the
scorecard,
umpire auditors, yeah,
the
yeah,
umpire auditor, and they miss like two big strike calls, or you
yeah,
know, or vice versa, ball calls, and where like everyone you see people like literally freaking out, saying
yeah,
this is what cost us the game. You know, that's just like a hand, like literally a few calls. Like,
yeah.
like to
This
me, it's almost like in the NBA, like they don't miss one or just 1 to 2 calls. Like it's like several, and you're Michael, kind of what you're talking about with Scott Foster, the extender. To me, like, dude, it's like so unserious,
Yeah,
so
it's a shame because you
unserious.
don't want it to be a story, especially with how good these playoffs and this series has been itself. The players have been out of their minds. Both teams it's been a dogfight. Like it's straight up been like the Thunder only made 3 threes in a 2025 NBA Finals game on the road and won. And, you know, people want to complain, "Oh, too many threes, ruining the game." And it's like they made 3 threes and slugged it out
I
and
don't
won.
understand why everyone bitches about the amount of 3 pointers.
That's because they don't watch the games, unfortunately. Like,
Like
that's what it
like
comes
you
down
can't
to.
just go and watch like the Final Four this past year, and you're like, oh my god, just so exciting! It's so amazing to watch it. And all they do is shoot 3 pointers in college because that's just
Right.
how the
I
college
mean,
game.
you look at like if you've been watching, it's like the Celtics. The Celtics are the one of the few teams that are like just a bunch of three. That is their game. Their game is to just shoot a lot of threes because they make a lot of threes and it's their game. You watch the Thunder, that is not their game. It hasn't been their game all season. Yes, everyone on the floor can shoot threes, but their game was just operating, you know, driving and getting to your spot, and that's like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. It's his game. Lou Dort, dude, in game 3 went 4 for 4 from 3, hit his first 3 in the first quarter, or first 3 threes in the first quarter. Game 4, he hits his first 3 in the first quarter. He didn't shoot one the rest of the game. What do we like, that's asinine, that's crazy, but it's just because people don't watch the games and see what it is. Go watch the Pacers. They shoot threes, sure, but it's not every possession. So that's, people complaining about that gets frustrating because I know they just don't watch. But point is that this game was a very, very good basketball game to watch. A slugfest, teams battling it out. They were just grinding every possession. You felt how important it was. And ultimately, listen, the last like 4 minutes, 5 minutes of the game, the Pacers couldn't make a shot. They couldn't buy a basket. They were missing, and they were getting good looks, good mid ranges, good threes, missing around the rim. They weren't getting any sort of ticky tack going their way. They were turning the ball over a couple times. The Thunder did get a couple ticky tack fouls going their way. Um, I thought the big one was the Chet Holmgren foul against Neesmith, where they called it in the act of shooting, and it just so totally did not feel like it was that way. Flipped the tide of the game, and the momentum was kind of zapped for the rest of the show there. But it was, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, got to give credit where credit's due. He got to the line in, some foul baity type ways, but granted, that's what it is.
It's been
But he,
every literally. I mean, sorry, Michael, not to cut you off,
yeah,
but like people complaining about like shy, like it all the free throws, like he'll shoot. Dude, just go pull up Kobe Bryant or like Michael Jordan or
and they were
LeBron's
getting to the
numbers with
line
free throws.
relentlessly. Like,
They were getting the line a lot because they were driving the lane and with the intention to shoot the ball.
yes, yeah. And listen, Shea, he's waiting around. You have your hand on him for too long, right through. Get the foul. I mean, Embiid does it. Harden made a living off it too. Like some of the greatest scorers of all time are great at that. And like because they don't let you get away with anything. They won't let you hold your hand on them and like, all right, I know your hand's on me here. I'm just gonna let you play real tight D on me without trying to get one. And he gets one. But while that's also true, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander also hit some huge shots down the stretch, nailed a couple hit a huge three, um, hit some huge tough mid ranges, some hard layups, making good moves to get some space in the paint. And listen, they did enough to pull away. I felt like one of those games where anytime it's close, the Pacers are just going to be able to do more and pull it out. And their shots weren't falling. And they like as much as the Thunder looked gassed in game 3, where they had their hands on their knees and looked like they were dropping dead, and the Pacers were high flying, everything was going well. All the Pacers missed shots were like short. And if you're shooting short, probably means you're a little bit tired. They looked like they were a little
Yeah,
bit
you know
gassed.
what? It reminded me when they played the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. When the Knicks won, they had to have a game at home.
Hmm.
Same thing. Pacers looked tired, and that's when that I forget that Greg Doyle, the creepy reporter
Oh
that's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
banned from covering Fever games,
yeah.
uh, was trying to bait Siakam into saying something like stupid, and he was
Oh,
like,
like you guys didn't try hard enough or whatever.
"Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
no, man, like the
But it's just,
Pacers."
listen, it just had like they were picking up they were picking up Halliburton right across half court. They were trying to get him in action with some screens, and they weren't letting him breathe. Granted, maybe some should have been called some fouls that weren't, but they weren't letting him breathe, and he couldn't get comfortable. And I got to give Chet Holmgren a lot of credit. He got his ankle rolled, and then he took like a knee to the shin. And like Reggie Miller said, there's not a lot of meat on those bones. There is not, and he was gimpy for like a 2.5 minute stretch towards the end of the game, but he was able to. It was very reminiscent of the 2016 Game 7 of the NBA Finals when Kevin Love was switched on to Steph Curry and was guarding him perfectly at the 3-point line when the Warriors were down three, and Steph couldn't get a good look to save his life. Halliburton was trying to get a switch on Chet with the bad leg, and he couldn't get a clean look. And when he did, he shot it short. But Shea blocked a three. I think Jalen Williams blocked a 3-point attempt from the Pacers, and Halliburton missed a tough layup that Chet Holmgren got a really good contest on. So you got to give them credit. They dug deep. They were gutsy, and they're heavily favored now to win the whole thing with what's turned into now a best 2 out of 3 with 2 games in Oklahoma City. So, you know, it's good on them. That was a huge, huge game. It's been like no team has won game 4 in the NBA Finals as the lower seed up 2 games to 1. And the ones that you think of, the 2015 Warriors were down 2 games to 1 to Cleveland, and Cleveland and Golden State had the home court. Golden State ended up winning the next 3 games and won the series in 6. The 2022 Warriors were down 2 games to 1 to the Celtics in Boston before Curry had the crazy game 4, and they won 3 in a row and ended up defeating the Celtics in the finals. So the way history shows it, the better team, the higher seed, the Thunder in this situation, win game 4, and they more likely than not, will be able to win the series in 6. So if that's how history has been telling it, should be Thunder in 6 at this point. So game 5 is a huge one. Game 5 is extremely pivotal. Obviously, it always
That would be
is.
so demoralizing, I think, for the it's just so demoralizing if
Like
you're up
game 4,
one
that's a
and you lose
demoralizing loss.
three straight games. Like you can't even like stop the bleeding at any point.
Yeah, they need to come out swinging in game 5 and try to play from ahead. And
I will
'cause
say this,
it's going to be
man.
hard to
I'm
come
going to say
come
this,
back
man.
down.
Rick Carlisle won a championship with the Dallas Mavericks, having to go against the the big three: LeBron,
Mhm.
D Wade, Bosh. I mean, three certified Hall of Famers. Well, definitely two. Bosh had his career cut short, sadly due to blood clots in his legs. But they
I mean,
also
it's
didn't they have
also
Ray Allen too at that point?
uh,
I don't think
I
they
don't
had
think
Ray Allen, but
I don't think
anyway.
Ray Allen was there yet, but
No, but like I
it was
feel like
also the playoff run too. Like uh it was more than just that where the Mavs, yes, obviously they beat the incredible Miami Heat in the finals, but they also beat the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Oklahoma City Thunder in the conference finals. They also beat the 2011 like second prime Kobe Lakers in the second round, and in the first round, they were able to beat a very good Portland Trailblazer team. So to go from they swept the Lakers, beat the Thunder in 5, and then dismantled the Heat in 6. Like
with
that's
Jason
truly a
Terry as
legendary
their
playoff
second
run.
best player.
Uh, yeah, it was Dirk, it was Tyson Chandler, Jason Kidd, and Jason Terry off the bench. Like it was a
Yeah,
good team, of
yeah,
course, but
39-year-old Jason Kidd.
yeah, Jason Kidd in the big 2011 was 37 years old. Yeah,
Yeah, okay. So
yeah,
point being, I'm not going to count the Pacers out, obviously, but
no, of
you're
course
right.
not.
Historically, it doesn't look
It's not
very,
looking good. It's
very
not looking
good.
good.
Does not look good.
I listen. I hope the Pacers can win Game 5 and put a lot of pressure on. Because losing Game 5, you'll see. Maybe the extender will go back the other way, and they'll force a Game 7.
Well,
But it's
you
going to be
know,
hard, man. Because they're at a minimum now. They got to win twice in Oklahoma City, and there's a decent chance that they're going to have to win potentially 3 times in Oklahoma City. If
yeah.
they're yeah,
Quick Sixers blurb. So
a lot of draft chatter.
there is, yeah. So Daryl Morey, who
He's cooked with drafts. I'll give him credit where it's due.
I find it odd that no one's like screaming for his head
I think
after.
everyone's just super apathetic, man.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think though too at the same time like the idea of using three to unload Paul George, and I actually see people saying, "Oh, brilliant if we could do that." I'm like, he's the one that signed Paul George to that awful contract. Like, this isn't like Howie Roseman dumping off Bryce Huff after winning a Super Bowl, where he's going to get a
No.
bit of a reprieve for it. This is like we signed Paul George to a stupid contract, and Daryl Morey's legit, truly forcing Embiid to play on a knee that needed to be surgically repaired. So no, like
Yeah. A
Daryl
lot of
Morey,
draft rumors of
yeah.
trading back potentially and getting Herb Jones from
And probably
the
drafting like
Pelicans.
like Canoopel.
Yeah, but they sound pretty I think they're going to at least stay close enough to get what they want. Like the rumors are that they have a top 4 players, and if I had to assume, Cooper Flag's not included into that. I feel like at this point you kind of have to eliminate him as an option. Um, if you're not picking number one overall, and God knows they might not even have Dylan Harper included in that top four. But with the rumors swirling that the Spurs may not be wanting to take him, I don't know if that's all smoke. And the Sixers potentially trying to move
Well,
up
it's not
from
so much
three to
the Spurs.
two.
The Spurs may not plan to take him, not because they want to draft Ace Bailey. It would most likely be either they're trading the pick to the Bucks because they're going to bring in Giannis, or let's say they draft. If they're drafting Ace Bailey, they may be looking to acquire more assets to use the assets to get Giannis like before the
Somehow.
season
Yeah,
starts.
there's ways. I don't know what the Sixers would have to actually give up without trading Maxey or McCain to move up one spot. In a perfect world, that would be fantastic. I'd kind of do whatever it takes if it meant not trading either of those two guys. Because I mean, listen, we're watching an NBA Finals. We're watching a Pacers team that is living and breathing proof of how important it is to have guard depth and a lot of guards that can play.
You need to have
Between
you need to have
you'd have like
four guards.
four guards, potentially kind of five, honestly, if you want to call Mathurin a guard, like at least those like in between sort of guys. Even though Sixers have two
Well, it's not
small
so much
ones,
you need
but
guards. You need guard forwards too. Like you need.
you need players that can dribble, handle the ball, and play elite perimeter defense like that. And that is what the Pacers and the Thunder, to be fair, have an abundance of. You look at Nemhard, you look at Neesmith, Halliburton, and T.J. McConnell and Benedict Mathurin, a bunch of guys that, yeah, not all of them can play defense. And Mathurin comes in spurts. He kind of turned into a pumpkin last night down the stretch in a 5-point game, missing three free throws and giving them two for two inbound fouls before the ball was thrown in. Like truly asinine stuff from Benedict Mathurin. But he was also a huge reason why they won game three, 27 points in 22 minutes. So you got to give credit where credit's due, and you got to give criticism where criticism's due. But the importance of having a bunch of guard depth and a bunch of guys that can just go out there and be pests on the defensive end and be able to score and dribble and do whatever they got to do on the offensive end and play team connecting basketball. It's really what
Yeah,
lends me to thinking
Could
they'll
you
take
imagine if
Edgecombe.
the
But
Sixers had like a guard depth of like McCain, Maxey, Quentin Grimes, and like Dylan Harper
VJ Edgecombe or
or
Dylan Harper.
VJ
Dylan Harper would
Edgecombe?
be the dream because as great as those three aforementioned guards, none of them are true point guards. Like, as much as Maxey has really developed as a passer over the years, he's not a true point guard. He would best fit as, like, the two guard in traditional settings, the combo guard that plays alongside a true facilitator that can Maxey can work off ball, cutting to the rim and getting good looks and knocking down open threes and can come and play in some action, but doesn't need to be the primary ball handler. And I think that's where his game is best suited. I think that's where Jared McCain's game is best suited. And shit, I think that's where Quentin Grimes' game is best suited. And the Sixers, outside of James Harden, haven't had a true playmaking point guard that can also shoot. Shout out Ben for not being able to shoot, but he was a great playmaker. But besides, prior to Ben, I mean, you're looking at a long time ago before we had a starting caliber point guard that could actually facilitate and run the offense as, your typical floor general that also has some scoring capabilities. That was James Harden. They haven't had that, and that's sort of what Dylan Harper is and would truly be that's like the match made in heaven. Um, but if it's not going to be that, I think VJ Edgecombe is the pick. And honestly, I think that's where they're leaning. I think they're leaning Edgecombe, guard for Baylor. So we will see. We'll see if any of the trade stuff is all just smoke. We'll see if it wasn't smoke, but they couldn't get it done. Maybe they do get it done. And, we'll see. The NBA draft in
The
a
NBA
couple weeks.
draft is very, very soon.
June 25th, 11 days.
Right.
that'll be after the finals, obviously. So we will be seeing.
We will be seeing it. Okay, man. Baseball.
On to the baseball team. So
Baseball.
those have won 3 of
Um,
4 after dropping a lot, getting swept by the Pirates, pretty low. But then they took 2 of 3 from the Cubs without Bryce, and Luzardo was definitely tipping, as he looked
did you see
electric.
the tipping video? Like, dude, like that's crazy that by just having his hand slightly out of his glove, where you could kind of you could tell
You
the
see the grip.
you could
Yeah,
see his grip, and he's just getting annihilated, man. That's like if you forget to put the cap back on your tire, and your car just explodes with
yeah.
you in it.
Like, it's just like he had his so the old clips, he has his hands low, right around, like, his belly button, and like you said, not his hands sticking out just a little bit. It looks like that was what he had against the Brewers start, and then against the Blue Jays, it looked like he got a bigger glove, but his hands were still low, so they were able to see, and then against the Cubs, it looked like he had the bigger glove to guard his hand, and then he also moved his hands up from his belly button to kinda like his right below his chest, and he was dominant, and it was always something like that, I felt, because his stuff never was worse. He was still sitting 97, 98. His sweeper was still nasty. It was just like they were spitting on it. They weren't even flinching at it, and it's like, what's going on here? So it looked like he figured it out. 6 innings, what, 9 strikeouts, 10 strikeouts, was dominant. 10 strikeouts, no run. It was great. It was very reassuring, with Luzardo there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man. Besides the Dodgers, obviously the National League, the Cubs are truly one of the like the elite teams, and they're gonna most likely at the trade deadline make another big move. Try to go for it all. Especially because Kyle Tucker realistically is not gonna re-sign with them. I'd be very
I'd
surprised.
be shocked too, but,
I'd be surprised, but
yeah, the Phillies, they hit pretty decently. Even in the game that they lost to the Cubs, I felt like the offense did a nice job battling. It was, you know, the Cubs offense is just kind of relentless. Even
mhm.
McAble, I thought, battled well despite giving up some runs. Getting that huge strikeout with the bases loaded against Tucker after falling behind 3-1. Thought that was some real balls. But like, you
Yeah,
just look at the
yeah. If
differences.
you make him a reliever, I suppose you like to see him in those situations because if you
Right,
bring him in
exactly.
with
So,
the guys on base, how's he going
yeah.
to handle it?
And you look at the difference in the lineup between the Phillies and the Cubs, it's like the Cubs 1 through 9 looks like everybody is capable of just hitting the living crap out of the ball. Everybody up there looks like they're dying to hit the ball 110 miles an hour off the bat, but also not on the
Have you
ground like
ever
the
listened
Phillies
to a
do.
Pete Crow Armstrong interview? The dude's insane,
Yeah, like the
crazy.
Cubs are very good offense. But listen, Phillies took 2 of 3. They won last night in a pretty dominant fashion. It was good to see that after, they did their normal thing where they'll have a big inning early and then they'll kind of stale. But then they ended up cracking on some more towards the end, which I thought was very nice to see. Ranger has been truly impeccable. I'm going to miss him a ton after this season.
It's gonna
Was
suck
just
when he goes signs with the Chicago Cubs or something because like
something. It's just going to suck, man. Wherever he ends up, it is
yeah,
going to blow because
Future Arizona
it is
Diamondback
virtually
Rangers.
impossible for any sort of rationalization for the Phillies to keep him at this point, and that just blows. That really does suck.
Yeah,
But you mentioned McAble in the bullpen, and sure, down the line, but
because well, this is why
for
I
the
mentioned
time
it.
being, he's definitely going to be in the rotation for a
Oh, of
while.
course.
As well,
Well,
yeah. Well, this is my segue into some injury chatter. So Aaron Nola started off as just an ankle issue, and unfortunately seems to have developed a stress fracture in his ribs, which that is super unideal. Aaron Nola, the guy that never gets hurt, had one IL stint in his career way back in 2016 hits the IL in 2025 and seems like he got in a car crash with the amount of stuff that's going on. So not great. Hasn't really been able to throw a ton.
Wait,
They
so
don't really.
so how did he fracture his
Well,
rib?
I don't know. They said a stress reaction, stress fracture. I think like stress fractures, small crack or severe bruising within a bone caused by repetitive stress and overuse rather than a sudden impact. It's what's considered to be a fatigued type of bone. The muscles are the muscles in that area are so overused that it causes the bone to kind of damage, um, and it's like a tiny crack. So granted, what makes sense as a pitcher, you're whipping that arm, whipping that arm, whipping that arm. Those rib muscle and rib bones in that area on that side of your body is clearly being worked to a T, and it looks like Noel's got a little crack in the rib, and they're just gonna have to wait till it heals. I feel like at this point, it doesn't feel as Phantom IL anymore. It just kind of makes sense. Like his stuff hasn't been as good. He's been the most used pitcher in baseball since 2020.
Yeah, it sounds like to me he was dealing with ankle pain, hip pain, rib pain, and it all just his body just fell apart and they're like you yeah, like you just
He
said.
just he needs the extended break, and I think that as
It is,
well.
dude. Dude. It is kind of alarming though that you saw what happened. Well, in spring training, he barely pitched, and I remember like Larry Anderson. Like, I was driving home from work one day. I was obviously listening to the Phillies, and Larry Anderson brought up he's like man like Nola barely pitched in spring training and his velocity's down. I'm like he's like geez, he's like normally a guy like him should be getting some work in spring training just to get himself warmed up. Well, now you kind of know why he didn't pitch much in spring training. It's because they knew he wasn't healthy and they probably didn't want to put him on the IL to start the season. You know,
Well, I think
because
it's just one of those things that Nola probably pretty routinely pitches through any sort of, like, slight discomfort just because he's never hurt, and it's as long as it's not, like, elbow or shoulder, I think they're like, "Ah, like, it's probably fine," and it just caught up to it.
I think because of the Phillies pitching depth, I think the
I was
Phillies
just about to say.
that they know they could stick him on the IL and then bring him back in like August, like mid August at the latest to have him like fully
Yeah,
healed
I
for a stretch
totally
run.
agree with you. Totally
Or
agree with you. I was thinking the same thing that,
or you're not going to like this. What if they were to move off of a starting pitcher to acquire another place of need because the Phillies are extremely adamant on not moving any of their top prospects. And unfortunately, if you're going to want to get the Phillies are cited as one of the most aggressive teams at the trade deadline by virtually every baseball news outlet.
I think a lot of those are just boomer takes that are like, "Oh, we know Dave Dombrowski," and it's like, Dave Dombrowski hasn't really forced the issue at the trade deadline for the Phillies at all.
Um,
He just
yes,
hasn't.
yes, but I also think
Like, Jim
too.
Bowden said for certain last year he was gonna have a huge deadline swing, and, like,
What, like Carlos Estevez wasn't a huge
I
deadline
don't
thing?
not particularly. You traded 2, like, pitchers, starting pitchers in a very starting pitching
He was
heavy
considered one of the
farm
best relievers available. He was
in
the
high I know,
all
I'm not saying they didn't try, I'm not disagreeing with that, but, like, they were I don't know, I just think that they were so certain, and I don't think the result is what they were referring to.
Michael. Not gonna lie, I feel like the days of huge names being moved at the deadline after the Soto move that we saw a couple years ago, I feel like that's going to be extremely rare. Like it's going to be like relief pitchers and
I agree, I don't disagree.
like mid-tier starters or like
Well, like you mentioned,
true
that
rentals.
true that the trading potential of a starting pitcher now Same with Nola. They're putting him on the IL because they have the depth for it and they can afford it. Like, it's not, it's not a big deal at the moment because Abel's pitching well and everyone else is pitching excellently. Starting pitching is just a force with this team. And Painter struggling a bit in AAA, which, not for nothing, he's a year off Tommy John. Like, it's pretty.
He's
You look
also
at the
probably one of the youngest players in AAA
you look at
overall.
historically pitchers that have Tommy John. I was doing this the other day. I was looking up pitchers that have Tommy John and what their stats look like. And besides like Justin Verlander in 2022, who won the Cy Young, but besides Verlander, besides uh, there was like a couple other guys. I'm drawing a blank now. Majority of the time, they suck the first year they come back from Tommy John. Like straight up cheeks, just bad. And it's like, well, it's all over. And then the following year, or sometimes even a second year after, they look back to being good again. Robbie Ray is the prime example of this that is
Oh,
actively happening, where he got Tommy John a couple years ago, was a straight up atrocity last year, and it was like, okay, Robbie Ray will be out of baseball before we know it. And he's been incredible this year for the Giants, and the Giants have a very good record. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they have an ace on the staff and Robbie Ray at the
well,
moment.
look how
And
bad Sandy Alcantara is pitching for the
right. And
Marlins.
I wouldn't be shocked if Sandy came back next year and was looking more like
Oh,
himself.
Michael, I guarantee you that he's going to get traded in the offseason, and it's going to be like a decent little. It's going to be for like a decent package, and you're going to see like I don't know, like Boomer.
Overpay,
You're going to
overpay.
be like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a massive overpay, and then he like you know.
So, all right, long encompassing way to get to this point is that um, you mentioned maybe they trade a starting pitcher to address a position of need. And there's like two starters that are currently on the team that are probably the most available. Not to say any of them are available, but the most available. And it's Ranger Suarez and Mick Abel. And granted, Mick Abel is the one that you could trade to anybody. Any good teams would take Mick Abel, bad teams would take Mick Abel, and they're a Mick Abel centered package of sorts to go get a bullpen arm, whether that's Mick Abel centered package to the Orioles if they fall out of it for Felix Bautista and maybe some other stuff, whatever. Ranger, on the other hand, is a lot harder to trade because you need to trade him to a good team. No bad team is going to take on Ranger Suarez on an expiring contract, knowing damn well he's leaving. So it needs to be a good team that has issues with starting pitching, and it's a mutual, oh, we trade Ranger centered something for a bat for a team that has an abundance of offense, or trade Ranger for a team that needs or for a pennant, whatever. But it really begs the question is trading Ranger Suarez, who would be a rental for another team for whatever piece you're going to get, is that worth more than the value you're going to get from Ranger, where you're probably going to get great starting pitching the rest of the season? As we know with Ranger, he sometimes can get gassed a bit, but this year, the fact that he started the year not with the team is usually when he has his best years, when he's not with the team on opening day because of some sort of issue. Um, but he tends to be great because his arm's ready for it. And also, one of the most poised best pitchers in October that this, franchise has kind of had, both
Yeah,
as a starter and as a bullpen arm.
Michael, I don't want the Phillies to trade Ranger.
And
My
it's
thing
that
is,
versatility too, where that you can put him in the bullpen and he can come out and pitch
yeah,
every
my
day.
concern is going to be are the Phillies front office going to panic if they hit a slump in July and they're just like, oh my god, we need a bat, and then I don't know, the Yankees or something call them up and they're like, call them and say, hey, what if we trade you like I don't know, Paul Goldschmidt and like a relief pitcher, one of our like psycho relievers for Ranger, and the Phillies out of desperation do it. Like, I'm not saying that they will, but I
No,
mean,
I hear
but
you.
like the Austin Sir Anthony Dominguez, Austin Hayes trades in hindsight now just looks moronic, and they sort of panicked on that. That was like a panic move.
I hear you. I will say Sir Anthony hasn't been like Sir Anthony hasn't been as good as I kind of thought he was in my head. Um, at least this year before looking
Yeah,
at it, like
but I think the thing is though, Michael, the Orioles are
like a
such a dumpster
4.2
fire.
ERA.
If Sir Anthony was back here, there's Caleb Cotham could
Yeah, his savant page is very interesting. The only thing it's
fix
bad
him.
is walk rate. But point being is I don't know if the Phillies will even do that if they're struggling a lot by July. Because listen, when we talked about it earlier, they're very confusing. Where obviously we really feel the need to win something with Bryce Harper, with Zach Wheeler, as they are aging and have been so important to this franchise's turnaround. And it would be an absolute crime, especially if Zach Wheeler, like he says at the end of 2027, he's hanging it up no matter what. I would be distraught if Zach didn't get to win a World Series. But at the same time, we got to be careful with, I think, the Phillies front office in the post like Clentac era has been very, very good at replenishing what was a straight up dead zone farm system. I know it's not great, but to think about where this farm was from like 2015 till like 2020 to what it is now, it is not even remotely in the same stratosphere. And even today, the farm isn't amazing, but it's still a lot better. I'm not saying, oh, we got to make all these decisions with the 2030 Phillies in mind, but is this team even? I think the whole point is this team good enough to where it's worth pushing all the prospect chips in? Like financially, they're about as all in as you can get. They have like one of the top
Well,
four payroll in
it
baseball.
depends on who
Like,
you're going to push it for. I got to be honest, Michael. As opposed to me lying every time we do this podcast. Like who is going to be available at the deadline for you to do that all in move? If you're going to make an all in move, it has to be in the off season. That's the thing. Like if you wanted to go all in,
there's no real bats that are available. The
that's my
bat
point.
market is going to be pretty dire. It's certainly
Like they're going to have to get
a
creative.
seller's
Like
market.
this is I've been saying. I said this the last show. If they want to they're going to have to get a little creative with fixing the outfield. I know he made a great play at short last night, but look, you said it the last show. You could fix your outfield by moving Trey Turner to center field.
That just feels like an off-season thing.
You
I'll be
know,
honest. That doesn't they're not
but you
doing
just
that
mentioned though
mid-season.
too, but you just said it too, like the clock's ticking too. If you want to keep delaying it, I mean, I don't know. Like that's the
I
thing.
hear you. They're a confusing team, and the injuries don't help. But listen, they've shown they can be successful without Bryce. Granted, I don't think that this team is as equipped to be as successful without Bryce as like the 2023 Phillies were and the 2022 Phillies were.
It
Um,
does, and I know he's popular. I do feel like it to me it's just frustrating with Nick Castellanos that when we signed him, he came off the season with a 940 OPS, and he has yet to eclipse 800 in a season for the
yeah,
Phillies.
because you're not even getting prior, like you're not even getting Detroit level Castellanos here. He's just I don't know if he might have really benefited from the juice ball era. It just there's a lot of things. He was a guy that would hit you 25-ish home runs and like 45 doubles, and you're just really far away from that player at this point. We've harnessed our expectations to be okay with like a 760 OPS, but he also looks like he's aged rapidly, where he looks slower than ever, especially in the outfield. Talk about how bad they are defensively, but how they don't make errors, and it's because they don't get to anything. He's like the poster child of that.
I also
Yeah.
feel too some of the whoever scores the Phillies like errors, like yep, that's the big thing with errors, right?
John, they're not even hitting their gloves though. Like Castellanos had that pop up that was foul against the Cubs that ended up costing a run. It didn't matter because they were up big, but a run ended up scoring where he's tracking over to the ball and he overruns it and it lands foul, and the next guy gets a hit and the next guy gets another hit and the run scores. And it's like, dude,
Well,
catch the baseball.
This is why Justin Crawford is not on another team right now, is because they know that that he is going to be a everyday player for them very, very soon. It's why they haven't given up on Rojas yet, and why they haven't unloaded Marsh, is because all three of them. I know Rojas has had his outfield adventures. One
I mean,
due to
Rojas is still very good out there. I feel pretty
right,
trustworthy.
yeah,
Marsh is like fine. I got to give Marsh some credit, man. He's hitting like 300 since he got back from the IL. I know it's easy to everyone piles on Marsh, but
but
he
you
had a
brought up
huge
the
double
stat, Michael, with their
yesterday.
inability to score with runners in scoring position, but they're hitting 251. That indicates that they have atrocious base running, and they're slow.
They're slow. They're a slow team, and they hit a lot of singles. And that's tough, man. They're a slow team that hits singles. Like,
It's like you
God,
have five Luis Ariases in your lineup.
yeah, and that blows, man. It's barely good to have one, and you have five. They're so they are. I don't know what to think. I'm not sure what to think of the Phillies. What I know, like there are some absolute truths, and one is that the rotation is incredible, and I trust any one of these guys that they throw out there that they're going to go out there and
It
show.
really feels like the Phillies after like 2019 and even 2020, when they're pitching outside of Wheeler and Knowles, was like a legit it's like a war crime that should have been tried in the head with how
It
atrocious
was
it was.
very yeah,
They put
yeah.
every nickel they had into pitching, which is great, great. And like the hitting now is kind of, now it's like we're kind of not like as bad as the pitching, but it's kind of like when like baseball's trending now to being a hitter's sport, hitter's game, as opposed to a pitcher's game. And while the Phillies now have this massive advantage, you're just sort of like, if we could just make a few tweaks here. Like, what if we just
John,
like
here's the comp that I was listening to uh Jack Fritz talk about it a little bit, and like it was a good comp of just what this Phillies team is, and it's we talked about it when they got Luzardo. It was like, oh, this could be the best rotation since 2011. And I don't think we fully realized how similar this team is actually built to 2011. Like, granted, they won 102 games, and that's great. But what do we remember genuinely about 2011? It was the starters were machines, looking at
the
some
bullpen
B
was really
war.
good.
What? The bullpen was good, but it was like
Ryan Madsen was really good that year.
piecemealed. Ryan Madsen was very
Yeah,
good.
but you had like Michael Stutes and
Kyle Kendrick threw like 20 games out of the bullpen and was solid. Michael Stutes was like the big acquisition. Antonio Bastardo had a good year. David Herndon, John, I have no idea who that is. No idea.
David. He was a guy that got in the Rule 5 draft.
He threw 45 games. He finished 22 games for the Phillies. I have no idea who this is. Um, Danny Baez, Lidge pitched a little bit. JC Romero was still there, pitched a little bit. Jose Contreras was, I think, the original closer of that team was supposed to be. The bullpen was like to be desired, and like the offense underperformed throughout the entire season.
Well, it's because
Ryan
they were
Howard,
old. Oh, there you
John,
go.
there you go. Ryan Howard had an 835 OPS, which by like Ryan Howard standards isn't amazing.
God, I would take an 835 OPS from Nick Castellanos right now, man.
Well, that's never happening. Chase Utley
Thanks.
Chase Utley had a 769 OPS, like a down offensive year for Chase, only 103 games as well.
Well, he was also dealing with some
Rollins
issues at that time.
Rollins 736 OPS. He slugged under 400, very league average at bat, 101 OPS plus, not great. Placido Polanco, 86 OPS plus, 674 OPS, pretty bad. Ibanez, after having the incredible
He was
'09, had
close.
a terrible 2011, a 91 OPS plus, only a 707 OPS. Truly atrocious. Victorino was one of your best hitters that year with an 847 OPS, and Chooch had a 754 OPS. Hunter Pence in 54 games actually raked for the Phillies. Didn't realize how good of a bat he was. Point being is that what did you have? You had an old offense with a lot to be desired. You had a bullpen with a lot of question marks that you just hope you can piecemeal together. And you had an elite starting rotation. And unfortunately, one of said elite starters choked away a game in the first round of the playoffs, and Cliff Lee blown a 4-run lead. So the comparisons, the 2011 Phillies are a lot more stark. And it's honestly become at this point like a derogatory comparison. I thought it was always like, 2011 Phillies, 102 wins, whatever. I don't think I really did a deep dive into how kind of disappointing the offense was for an 102 win team. Truly remarkable. Um, but I mean, how did they lose in the playoffs? They couldn't hit. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen this time around. I hope it doesn't. But the comparisons are a lot more similar than I had previously thought, where I just thought it ended at the rotation, and I didn't realize it
Well,
was the entire
well, the
team.
Phillies lost to the eventual World Series champion Cardinals in 5 games. They gave the Cardinals they put up a strong fight with the Cardinals. If you recall, the Cardinals, I believe, in the World Series against the Texas Rangers that year. If you recall, that was when Nelson Cruz had that infamous error where,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's the David Freeze,
David Freeze like went
big plays. Yeah.
nuclear, but at the same time, the Phillies were the only pitching staff that actually shut down that offense. And I don't know, that team was still better than this team from the
Oh,
perspective
no, of
that,
course it was. And like the
but
starters were better.
but here's the thing though. Hunter Pence was one of the most
It was a
desired
huge
players at the
deadline.
deadline, and he was an all-star. He was an all-star outfielder. Like
Yeah.
there's like I'm sitting here thinking like we're gonna trade for Isaiah Kiner Falefa,
It
and they're
would
gonna
be
move
the
Trey to the outfield because there's literally nothing there for us. There's like literally nothing because all the bad teams, Michael, are so horrifically bad. Like their players would be in like our AAA system.
the closest thing I could think of would be if the Cubs go down a spiral and by the time the trade deadline rolls around, they're like 9 games under 500 and we trade for Kyle Tucker. That's like that's what would be the equivalent to trading for Hunter Pence.
Yes, and I'm thinking, yeah, dude, like I'm thinking
And
here,
like I don't know if the Cubs are going to
like, do we have
lose
to
their
call
next
the
like
Marlins? Do
40
we call
games.
the Marlins up and be like, we'll give you Aiden Miller, Mick Abel, and like Eduardo
Jesus Christ, what are we
Taillib
getting for this?
For Kyle Stowers?
Oh my God,
Because
it's like
that's
a
what you would have to give up to get him. Because he is a
it's a seller's market, Josh. It is
yeah.
a
Because the
seller's
Marlins would probably
market.
trade Kyle Stowers because they should be contracted from baseball and be stricken from history, in my opinion. But that it is what it is. They're an embarrassment to the sport. You know, I think they're a bigger embarrassment than the Rockies. The Rockies are just going to be really awful for 1 year. The Marlins do this consistently. You know.
Mhm. Mhm.
Ugh, sorry, I didn't mean to get all hot and bothered on a Saturday morning
No, no,
talking
no,
about.
it's valid.
All right, so obviously we'll talk more baseball once the hoops and hockey wrap up as well. All right, so for today, Eagles. What anything Eagle specific happened? I don't think anything.
Um,
Someone had a really crude Jason Kelsey tattoo on their arm.
yeah. Uh, I actually think there's nothing about the Eagles right now.
Some stupid teenage Ravens fans with Roquan Smith avatars are talking bad about Jalen Hurts. Like I don't know, like what?
I mean, what else is new, man? It is Jalen discourse. I'm gonna just remove myself from. Um, I know how I feel how I feel about him. I feel I have a pretty good assessment on how good he is and lack thereof. Um, nice. Okay. But anyways, this is what we're doing. I think the other you know what, this is probably fine because they'll move up
This
as you. I think the first one's honestly fine with us on the bottom because as we drag them, they're gonna move up
right.
to towards the top. So what we have here is a wonderful cheer list with all 32 head coaches in the NFL.
So, so what do you think of these? So the tiers I have established, I have elite, good, mid, hot seat,
And get them
should
out
have
of
been
there.
fired.
Yeah. Um, and we're gonna do this based on like some projections as well. Obviously, because we do have some first, similar to rookies, we have first year head coaches that we can feel how we feel about them, but ultimately we need to see them do the damn thing before we can anoint or denounce. So, what better way to start than with a first year head coach in Aaron Glenn? Uh, Former Lions defensive coordinator, employed a very good defense, and then injuries really derailed everything, and they couldn't really get out of their own way. Shout out Aaron Glenn for not banning the tush push. And listen, I like Aaron Glenn a lot, and I do think that he can be a good coach. Unfortunately, I think the Jets are just such a tough spot to succeed in. We'll see if we get a culture shift in the post Salah, post Rodgers era of the Jets. Granted, any team where your plan is Justin Fields at quarterback, I feel like can't be super enticing, but how much blame can we really attest that to Aaron Glenn? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do think Aaron Glenn is, if you compare some of the last coaches, like Robert Sala to me was like a fake tough guy. You saw it on Hard Knocks. He tried to act like he was Bill Parcells. Um, for some reason in New York, all these coaches they come to New York and they try to act like these tough guys, especially in the
Yeah.
media, as opposed to being authentic. Eric Glenn to me seems like the first like authentic coach they've hired for both teams since like I guess both New York teams since maybe Tom Coughlin and Michael. That was in 2004. So with that being said, I'm gonna put him mid.
Oh yeah, like higher end of mid, and I
I'll put
guess
him
we'll
in mid.
see.
I think the Jets could win 6, 7 games. Like you might see them start off hot, and then they'll just fall off at the end of the season, and then maybe go and make their quarterback move in the draft since they're not really married to a quarterback, even though they have Justin Fields. His contract, Michael, is very much um, like they can get out of it after 1 year. It's not a huge deal.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Andy
Um,
Reid. Well, come on, man, come on.
Elite. No, without a doubt.
Let's,
He's been
there we go, elite.
John.
No,
He's
sorry.
one
I'm
of
trying to
the
fit all the coaches without and the stupid ad at the bottom, bro.
I mean, it's fine. We're gonna be
Oh
moving
boy,
up.
here we go. Ben
Yeah, do
Johnson
you
of
want to
the
spend?
Chicago Bears.
So my gut wants to put him in good. Um, just thinking of how much of a machine that Lions offense was and how much it really transformed when he got there, and then they also got some players to play with. Like, they really built out their offensive line, and it became one of the most dynamic offenses in football. It was virtually unstoppable. They were killing teams in all different types of ways. It was impressive stuff for sure. Obviously, with the new team, I look at the Bears and I see like they can maybe pass as well as the Lions can, but they won't be able to succeed running the ball. I think he's going to be a really good fit for Caleb in terms of like a personality mesh. I'd put him in good. I feel confident putting him in good.
Yeah, I'm torn between like the top end of mid to like good because mid is like 9 wins, right?
Yeah,
You think mid's like 9 wins
yeah.
most. I feel like this Bears team is like a 9 win team for a couple of reasons. I think one, here's the thing with Ben Johnson, and this is like the big thing with a lot of these scheme coaches, we'll call them, right? Guys who are big on
Hmm.
schemes. It's also about culture. And all you heard about Dan Campbell is culture, 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 and not a whole lot about Ben Johnson. Where Ben Johnson could completely ignore culture because that was like what Dan Campbell did. And
Hmm.
like the Chicago Bears, Michael, certainly under Matt Eberflus had a culture problem.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we'll put him in good, but I feel like the back end of good.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
Um,
I'm not gonna put him ahead of like say like a John like one of the Hardballs, for
yeah.
example. Okay. Bryce Callahan. That's his first name, right?
Brian.
Brian
Brian.
Callahan. Oh, isn't I almost said Bo Callahan, like the guy from
The
Draft Day.
fucking draft day movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Brian
Brian
Callahan.
Callahan. So,
I'm thinking like fired or hot
oh,
seat.
you're not even gonna give him a shot with Cam Ward? I
Because I mean, I think Cam Ward's good, but like, dude,
I don't think he should have been fired. What was his quarterback situation last year? Mason Rudolph and Will Levis.
yeah, but what if
Uh,
there's a young hot shot head coach that's like, this scheme genius, and they're like, oh, we can upgrade here, so we're gonna fire him and then bring in.
I think it's got to be worth a shot.
I'm
Like,
gonna say hot seat because if they win like 3 games again next year or 4 games, like it's really hard to like keep your job after that.
yeah, and I guess there's like it's too unproven to I think even throw in mid. So sure. Brian Dable. mm, I want to say it's a hot seat, but like he does feel like he just bought himself some time with Jackson Dart, where it would feel unfair that a down year for the Giants and then firing the head coach, like, oh, where I think we know that drafting a guy like Jackson Dart is you're like committing to a couple years of development. Like you're not drafting Jackson Dart expecting him to be in contention for offensive rookie of the year. He's not even going to be starting. Like he's not the starter on the roster, and he might not even he might not even be the backup on the roster by the time week one rolls around. So I think mid is maybe a decent spot to put him. Um,
I'm thinking hot seat because like besides his first
I think they'd
year,
have to go like winless for him to get fired.
here's the thing, Michael.
Truly.
I got to be honest. This is kind of look at Dable. I look at Dable as like a guy who is a really good offensive coordinator. Where I think if he gets fired by the Giants, he needs to go somewhere else to succeed, learning from his mistakes from the Giants.
Hmm.
Where like at some point, Michael, like here's the thing though, Michael. What if the Giants went out, like you saw the issues Dable had with Wink Martindale, right?
Hmm.
And like who was their defensive coordinator this past year? Giants
It was
defensive
the Packers guy, right?
Shane Bowen.
Mm,
Like
I
he's
don't know.
considered a good defensive coordinator, right? Like
I,
The Giants hired this guy who helped turn Josh Allen into a superstar, and their offenses are just repeatedly putrid.
yeah,
And
but John,
they,
I mean,
they hired, and it's possible Russell Wilson could be the worst starting quarterback in the NFL this
they
year.
turned Josh Allen into what he is today, and then they were like, "All right, well, can you do that with Daniel Jones?" And like to me,
I'm not saying it's fair. It's sort of like how many times you're going to have a guy win 4 games every year and just keep them to where like everyone's just mentally beaten and broken down, where you might need somebody else to kind of fix things. Whether
like,
it's
I
the
don't see
GM,
him being fired until Jackson Dart is the full-time starter.
I can see him getting fired if Mara, who's not been very good recently with owning the Giants, if they fire the GM, I think the new GM is going to fire Dable. It's usually the GM and the coach are like a package deal.
But you don't think that the Jackson Dart draft selection is at least buying them time?
If
Like,
they
I
win
don't think it
three,
would be.
Michael, they have the hardest schedule in pro football this upcoming
No, I
season.
get it. I just don't that almost
No, I don't think
points
it
the other
does,
way.
Michael. I don't think it does because okay, here's the scenario: Giants are the worst team in the NFL this year and get the number one overall pick. Arch Manning decides to come in and enter the draft, play for his uncle's wants to play for his uncle's team. You don't think the Giants would Josh Rosen, Jackson Dart,
I don't disagree with that sentiment for sure.
right? And then bring in
Um,
another coach because like
I think that's
there's
the
so
only
much
scenario.
stench. There's like so much stench from
I think that's the only scenario. They would have to be in a position to
it's
draft
a
Arch
likely
Manning.
scenario. It's not like it's unlikely.
Eh, I think their defense
They
is good
talked
enough to
like
carry
Michael. They
them.
Adam Schefter brought up the NFL instituting a lottery, subtly implying the NFL could rig said lottery to get the Giants a quarterback.
Yeah, I
After
guess, but
taking
I mean,
Jackson Dart, that what does that like Jackson Dart, Michael, the Jackson Dart pick in the first round, if the Falcons did not make that stupid James Pierce trade, was the worst pick in the first round.
I don't disagree with you.
Especially if Shador, who was a fifth round pick, right now is the best player in Browns camp.
Yeah, I
The
mean, if
Giants could
Mara
have picked him
liked
in the fourth
Dart,
round, and like,
I mean, you're
and
telling me John Mara doesn't like Jackson Dart?
John
John
Mara,
Mara doesn't
John
see him and
Mara,
think he's
John
Eli?
Mara, John Mara should just hire competent people and stay the f away from his football
No,
team.
but he doesn't, and you don't think John Mara thinks that Jackson Dart is Eli?
Okay,
That's
Eli
my
was a
point. He
highly
loves
touted.
Eli.
Eli was a
He
highly touted prospect. Michael,
Yeah,
he
but
was
he sees
he
like,
was
"Oh, that's
Michael Eli Manning.
well, because he was a Manning, that's why."
There was like legit back because you were barely alive when
Oh,
this.
I know.
But like,
What was
dude,
the
like
whole it was the
Eli
whole
Manning
drama
was
from it.
like, dude, Eli Manning was on like the cover of Sports Illustrated like 2 years before he was the first overall pick. People talking about him saying this Eli Manning is a better prospect than his older brother Peyton was. Think about that.
Well, that just feels disingenuous.
No, but that's what they were saying. That's what they were saying.
I
You
think I
know,
think the seats I just when I see a guy like Jackson Dart, like, honestly, if any Jackson Dart type of draft pick to me, that feels almost like at the very least, we're buying time for our jobs. Where it's like they're banking on not being in a position to draft Arch Manning, and it would be, like, truly insane, I think, for you to hire or for you to fire the head coach GM. Because I do agree with you that I feel like if they're gonna fire one, they're gonna fire both. That let's say the year rolls by and they aren't good, Dart plays, like, the last, like, 4 games, and they fire the head coach and GM that, like, stuck out their necks super far to draft him, you know? Like, we knew there was contention when the Eagles drafted Jalen. We knew that was like a Howie thing, not really a Doug thing, and there was contention with it, and when Jalen was the starter for the 4 games, they were like, "Alright, it's time to move on from Doug." I think that the Giants were in lockstep on that decision, and I think, like, if Jackson Dart plays only a little bit this season, it doesn't even matter how he looks. To then just be like, "Okay, we're gonna bring in a new head coach and a new GM that clearly is not gonna want Jackson Dart as the starting quarterback of the future." I just think the firing of Brian Dable is at least multiple years away.
I think no, I think he's on the hot seat. No, he's on the hot seat
Alright.
because Michael, if they start out 0-9, which is a possibility, mind you,
Yeah.
are we gonna be sitting here like you're giant like because here's the thing too, man. there's optics to this. Like there's optics to these things. If they start out 0-9, are we going to be like, oh, Brian Dable and Giants talk about extension?
I mean, I don't think we're going to see that like at all. I think we're going
How
to,
many years left does he have on his contract? Brian Dable contract. Oh, so he has. Wow. So 5-year contract in 2022, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Michael, the last year of his contract is 2026.
that's what
This
I'm saying.
well,
Like,
no, he's on the if he like what you said multiple years. Are you counting like 2025 and 2026 as multiple years?
that's multiple years, isn't it? Like,
Well,
I think it's,
if you want to fire a coach, you typically want to do it when he's got 1 year left on his contract, or his final. Because usually you don't have a head coach enter his final year of his contract. See McCarthy, Mike with the Dallas Cowboys.
yeah, I feel like they're going to want at the very least him to have a full year of Jackson Dart as the starter.
But
And
Jackson
that does
Dart might
not
not
feel
play a
like this year.
snap.
This year, yeah, that's what I'm thinking next year.
Okay, whatever.
I mean, like, I do think the seat's not cold, that's for sure. But it feels like
When's
one
our
of those
home game
moves.
against the Giants?
Uh, it's not the Thursday game. It's like week 9. Do you think he's not going to be the head coach by week 9?
I'm gonna cackle in my seat at you if they're like 0-9, and you're like, I'm gonna yell contract extension.
Yeah, listen, if Brian Dable is not the head coach by week 9, that'd be pretty funny. Uh, Brian Schottenheimer. Oh boy,
Uh,
like probably just
Michael, this could go two ways. Do you think Brian Schottenheimer is a 1 year bridge coach for a bigger name to come in and coach the Dallas Cowboys like Deion Sanders?
they're not hiring Dion.
Or like
I don't think Dion wants to coach the NFL.
or
Um,
Lincoln Riley?
maybe, maybe. I don't think they should have hired Schottenheimer. I think they were better off. I mean, we know what this was. This was a Jones family yes man that's like going to kind of do whatever they need him to do. I think they would have been better off, and like that's what they always do. They always hire the BS, like from Jason Garrett to Mike McCarthy. They hire the crap. Like it would behoove them to take a swing. They could literally pick 5 teams, close their eyes, and be like, all right, whatever team we land on, we're going to either try to hire their offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach, and that's it. We're going to pick like the Rams, the Lions,
Believe it or not, Michael, Brian Schottenheimer is the third straight head coach. Well, no, McCarthy was out of football, I think, for a year or two before the Cowboys hired him. Right?
McCarthy. Yeah, he didn't go directly. It was like I think it was a year.
He was out of football for a year, but then Jason Garrett was an internal hire. He was the OC
Actually, it might have been
under.
2 years.
So
My point is they don't take a swing. Like they don't go, all right, where's this high end team? I'm gonna try to hire their coordinator away. Like they don't, they're not trying that. I'm not saying like
they interviewed Kellen Moore. Reportedly wanted to offer him the position. He turned him down.
yeah, because and that would have been too much like hiring Schottenheimer anyways, to be honest with you. Like that you're hiring your former offensive coordinator that
You
you were
fired.
jealous of that he's got success elsewhere. Like it would have been what would have fit the mold, but also been very Cowboys like would have been if they hired Cliff Kingsbury. Like that would have been the sort of thing that I
That they
expected
might
them to have
actually
done.
do that.
So what do we do? Where does he go? Like we shouldn't have
Uh,
hired him. Like
I think he's the lowest paid head coach in the NFL.
what does that tell you about the Jones family?
So I'm going to say hot seat because it's not like
It's a
they're going
low
to
commitment.
exactly.
Now this guy.
Dan Campbell, good,
Good. Good.
good,
For now. We'll see. We'll see how
good.
he
I
looks
mean, like
without
what
his
we're going to say he's
almighty
mid.
coordinators.
That's kind of disrespectful if we said he's mid.
I'm gonna disrespect him. Dan Quinn.
Good.
Like, is he good? Yeah, I guess he's good,
He's got a
man. I
winning
guess he's
record.
good. And listen, he went to the conference championship game with a rookie quarterback. That's impressive feat.
I think Dan Quinn is the modern day Marty Schottenheimer, where when he loses playoff games, Michael, he loses them in like spectacular fashion.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like normal losses. They're like our safety drops an easy pick six, reflects back, bounces back to the opposing team when we have our foot on their throats, and they come back and then they beat us. But then on the final drive, a like first ballot Hall of Famer lets a pass go right between his hands uncharacteristically against a team he normally destroys in the regular season. Or we're up 28-3 in the Super Bowl and we had the biggest choke job in like what people consider in modern American sports in a game. Or most recently, we dethrone the number one seed on the road. We play our division rival, who we play very close in our first two encounters. We're actually almost fully healthy in the game. And oh, yeah, they completely and utterly annihilate us on national television.
So, anyways,
Always good. Always good.
okay.
Good, not great.
Who are we
Uh,
looking at here?
Dan
Oh, Dave
Canales.
Canales.
Dave Canales.
Dude, Dave Canales is good. I'd put him in good. What he did, what Bryce Young
Uh,
showed me at the end of last year was really, really impressive. The Panthers have one of the worst rosters I ever laid my two eyes on last
yeah, that's a
year.
good point. That's a good
And they
point.
hung around with the two Super Bowl representatives. He deserves credit. Like Bryce Young, we were like, all right, this is a get this guy out of the NFL. And Dave Canales did a great job there. D'Amico Ryans, good.
Good.
He's good. I think he's really good,
Good. I
actually.
mean,
Like
if his offensive coordinator he had the last 2 years was literally like one of the worst, or maybe the worst, and he
he
still won
employs,
double-digit games. I mean, I think
yeah,
that's
he
good.
employs a nasty defense, one of the top defenses in the NFL since he's taken over. Truly, like one of those guys that it was so obvious that he was going to work out when he was, in San Francisco as a D coordinator and was working his way up. So very good. Shout out D'Amico. He's better than Dan Quinn.
I don't know.
He
We're
might.
ranking them here, but
If we're not ranking it, I guess it doesn't matter because
all
I
right,
don't
here we
think Ben
go.
Johnson's at the top of that either.
Yeah.
Jim, Jim's good, right? Like top of mid.
Has he ever had a losing record in the NFL? Maybe 1 year.
Let's see.
I think maybe his last year with the Niners, where he was feuding with Trent Baalke, and Trent Baalke is going to be permanently golfing because no front office would ever hire him again.
Did he only coach 4 years in the NFL? Are you shitting me? Excuse me. Before he went to college?
Yeah, it's because he had this blood feud with Trent Baalke,
They went
and
8-8. Like Jesus Christ,
so he's never had a losing record.
13-3 his first year as a head coach. Went to the conference championship game, lost. 11-4-1, went to the Super Bowl in his second year. 12-4 the following year. 8-8. Missed the playoffs, and then they went 11-6 last year. Not for nothing.
And
Elite.
now it's with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick as his quarterback there. If he was allowed to, if he stayed and like the Niners made like a Stafford trade to get like an elite level quarterback, like
Mm-hmm.
he might have a Super Bowl right now. We don't know. Now he's got Herbert. As long as
And
Herbert,
they're building something out there.
they are, but they're the Chargers, and as you said, Michael, they should be
Really.
relegated.
So
We'll put
elite.
him somewhere like here for now. We'll rank them
We're
at
not going to put him in elite. I mean, he might deserve some credit here.
I feel like Do you feel like the elite coaches need to have a Super Bowl ring? We're not counting college. And also, by the way, he cheated when he was in college. That's not like
I mean, we just might
pretend.
not have many elite coaches looking at the list here. Like, where are we putting his brother then?
I mean, his
Good. I think
brother's
his
technically more accomplished in the NFL. Granted, he coached it longer, but
I mean,
he
he
also
beat him in the Super Bowl, but, like, I think that's he just coached longer in the NFL. I think if
if Jim
a lot of
Harbaugh's
ifs,
elite,
but
if he's elite, he's like bottom of the elite tier. He's not. He's
yeah,
like
and
here
he's got
or here.
I'd put him, I guess, top of good, I guess. Sure. And then we're gonna put his brother.
I think it's disrespectful if you put him in
Then put his
good.
brother in good. Put Jim in good, and then John, I guess, in elite.
Here's the thing though with John
Or is
is
John also good? Because I think there's questions here.
I think John Harbaugh is questionable. I think he is for a couple reasons. One, like when you talk about like the CEO head coach like Sirianni, like the Ravens every time they're in a playoff game, it's almost like it's like they look like they're about to piss all over themselves.
Right.
Like the Ravens have this reputation of being this like hard-nosed, tough football team that like the Steelers, right?
Hmm.
And they get in the playoffs and when they have to play a good team, they just like make so many mistakes. And like I don't know, Michael, you look at the Eagles under Nick Sirianni, like, you know, how many mistakes did the 2024 Eagles make like regularly during the regular season in games
Um,
against good teams?
week 2 against Atlanta was a mistake. Um,
Okay. Week
like
3.
week 3 against New Orleans, there were coaching mistakes. A lot of them. Tampa, they were just injured, and the whole thing was a mistake. Outside of that, yeah, not many.
When he's
Not
working with
many.
two new coordinators.
And like a lot of the mistakes, if they did make them, they were still winning games. So who cares? You know? I'd put John in good because I think he has some flaws that
Yeah, we'll put him.
top of good.
He hasn't really like I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Like he gets
Uh
completely outcoached by this guy every time they go up against each other in the
right.
playoffs.
All right. Jonathan Gannon. I'm willing to put him
He's like certainly
in
mid. He's mid.
mid. Yeah, yeah.
Very
I'm gonna put
mid.
because I don't think players love him. Players love him.
Pew pew
The
pew pew pew
Cardinals
pew. Pew, pew.
rosters really have not been very good since he's gotten there, but they've gotten better. So I'm expecting, better things. The Cardinals hung
Well,
around
so
with
like
good games
this
last
is the
year,
first offseason that the Cardinals actually kind of went out and spent money
too. Right.
in free agency. The problem
Right.
is, I honestly feel like Josh Sweat. This feels like the way I look at the Eagles going. I could see Josh Sweat literally playing only 1 year in Arizona. They cut him. He comes back to the Eagles and is good here, like New England. Remember when like the Eagles signed Patrick Chung and he was legit straight up trash? They let him go. He goes back to New England and then he's just playing at a near Pro Bowl level.
Yeah.
Like that, him going to Arizona was a cash grab, which rightfully so.
I mean,
Get
a
the
lot of it
bag.
too was him with Gannon. Like he loved Jonathan Gannon. He credits like essentially all of his success to Jonathan Gannon. That was the guy that helped him unlock his potential as a pass rusher. He gives him a lot of credit. So, I mean, I think Arizona was always a good fit, but Kellen Moore, mid, mid.
You're not going to consider hot seat because of how like an abomination the Saints roster is.
That's not his fault.
No,
I don't think they would fire him after one season.
yeah, that's a good point. We'll put him mid. Um,
Zach Taylor.
Michael, I'm
He's
thinking,
grown
Michael, I
on
got to
me because
listen, Michael. You look at so the Cincinnati Bengals right now are an absolute embarrassment to pro football with their front
wait a
office.
minute, did I say Zach Taylor? Jesus Christ, dude, that's Kevin O'Connell. What's wrong with us?
They kind of do look like. Where's Zach Taylor?
At the bottom, he's the last one.
Oh, oh boy. Okay.
They do have that same
Do you
dorky
want to put
smile.
Do you want to put Kevin O'Connell in elite when you look at what he's had to work with?
He really does seem like a quarterback whisperer. Like there's something there, and I don't want to be like
Did you see JJ McCarthy's over unders for passing touchdowns this year is like 26 and a half?
it's an interesting line. I mean, like Kevin O'Connell has really done a lot to make a Vikings offense stay relevant with like a rotation of running backs and quarterbacks, and it still is good pretty much every year with Justin Jefferson being kind of the heartbeat. I could put him in top of good or elite. I wouldn't, I guess, argue either way.
I'm gonna put him ahead of the Harbaughs
Sure.
because I think if
Kevin's
you put, I think if he was in the situation, like if he had Lamar Jackson, like they're easily the best. They could probably win a Super Bowl. That's right. I could do hypotheticals too.
yeah. Um, Kevin
I think
Stefanski.
he's on the hot
I
seat. He's on the hot seat, dude.
that seems unfair.
Well, Michael, listen, this is why I said I think Dable's going to get
Two-time
canned.
coach of the year, man.
Michael,
Two-time, not just
Michael,
one.
this is why I said I think Dable's getting canned.
Yeah.
Is that poorly run teams go through coaches like people go through underwear. Someone's got to be helped. They can't blame Deshaun Watson next year for having an awful season, even though he kind of is his fault with the contract they gave him. But that was the
Mhm.
owner, and the owner's not going to take accountability for that. So someone needs to. And listen, man, dude, like that trade they made, if it wasn't the Browns that executed it, it might be considered good. But when I see Mason Graham, sucking wind in like training and like rookie OTAs, and he's got
All
like,
this, but like this is the head, and we're looking at just like Kevin Stefanski here,
but
I
the
feel
owner,
like
the owner wanted Shador. Stefanski didn't. Shador's a quarterback. He's kind of like a lame duck head coach. Who do you think they're going to side with?
I guess. I guess. What do you win coach of the year 2 years ago? And
Uh,
he's already on his way out because of the creep and whatever the hell's going on with the quarterback.
mm,
I like
we'll say
Stefanski.
the hot seat because if they go and win 3 games again, it's really hard to maintain your job in the
Okay, fair
NFL.
enough.
But we'll put
Liam
him.
Cohen. I like Liam Cohen. I think Liam Cohen's good. I think he's going to be good too. Like I'm pretty high on the
I'm going to
Jags
say
as a
mid.
whole.
I'm going to say mid because their defense is still really bad. They do play in a.
Yeah, but this isn't a team ranking, John. Like we're going the coach here, Like I know it's a lot of it's all encompassing, but if the Jags win 9 games and they have a top 6 offense and a defense that ranks like 19th,
Would you say Sirianni after his first season was mid?
when they won 9 and 8 and he had to give up play calling, like yeah. Like it's not like it was 9 and 8 and Sirianni was cooking head coaching duties. Like his biggest the best thing he did that season was give up play calling to Shane Steichen. And like and instill his culture, which is great. It's very important. Obviously, it's built the foundation for what we have today. That's wonderful. But
And
like,
I can't, dude, I can't give a rookie head coach good when he's only been an
I mean,
OC
we
in
gave it
the
to
NFL for
Ben
one season.
Johnson. Yeah, and Baker
Ben
threw
Johnson,
for
Ben Johnson's offenses were considered the best in the NFL the last couple seasons.
I mean, the Tampa offense. I mean, we got people ranking Baker like, you know, absurdly. Baker Mayfield, 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, 71% completion percentage. That's an
Yeah, but
OC
Baker's
masterclass.
also playing with a first ballot Hall of Fame wide receiver. When healthy, the second receiver's really good. Two really good
Oh,
running
look at
backs.
what's cooking in Jacksonville, man. They might have some
Bro,
great receiver
Jacksonville, listen,
duo.
man, listen, dude. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a dumpster fire. They are a dumpster fire. If you
Like, are
take
we
out the one
putting
Doug season, they are a dumpster fire. And I can't really I would be shocked if somehow the Jags win 11 or 12 games with Liam Cohen as the head coach. That is good.
so are
9
we
wins is mid.
equating the head coaching hire of Liam Cohen and Kellen Moore as the same?
I feel like we need another tier.
Probably. Probably between I don't know where, honestly, but it's not
Between
happening
mid
at
and
this
hot
point.
seat. How about
Yeah.
this? Here, we're
I
gonna
mean, we don't have to add it because then we're starting to I think then we're losing the plot here. It's top of mid, I guess. Because I am high on the Jags. I'm high on Cohen, but all right. Next here we have
Shanahan.
Shanahan. Very controversial because he does employ what is usually a great offense every year. He might be the modern day Schottenheimer. He may just be early aged Andy Reid. I don't know. We don't know yet. It'll remain to be seen if in 20 years Kyle Shanahan starts winning Super Bowls at will. Um, I don't know. Like if we did this tier list in 2006, where would Andy Reid be ranked?
Probably good.
Probably good. So I
So
guess there's our
he's
answer for
definitely
Kyle
good.
Shanahan. Top of good. Um, Matt LaFleur. I like Matt LaFleur.
He's good.
He's good. There's a
We
lot
got
of
way
good.
too
I
okay, we
think we're
got
coming to
way
realize,
too many good coaches so
John.
far.
I think we're coming to realize there's a lot of good coaches in the NFL. I think we de facto say like, some of these coaches blow, but then we're like, a lot of these coaches are pretty good. Um, who in the
McDonald from
hell?
the Seahawks.
Oh my God, I could not recognize him.
He's
Mid,
mid.
I
He's
guess. Like
extremely mid
he's
because
about as mid as it gets. He's pretty unproven. Their roster has hit like a bomb has hit it. Like I don't know what they're cooking. He's a defensive first coach, but like the defense they employ has like no threatening defensive linemen. So they kind of get,
do you think Arch Manning likes Seattle?
are they going to be that bad? Wow.
No, I'm
Maybe.
just like
Well,
because Sam Darnold, their quarterback situation's in a tough spot, in my
yeah.
opinion. We'll say he's mid. Mike McDaniel. I think he's on
Hot
the hot
seat.
seat. I think
Hot
he's on
seat.
the hot seat.
Hot seat. I like McDaniel. He's soured on me a bit in terms of just pure head coaching. I think he's a goofy guy. I like the guy. I
I'm
don't
gonna
think
I'm
that
gonna make a bold prediction. He's gonna get fired soon by the Dolphins because their GM is horrible. Michael Chris Greer is a horrible general manager. Um,
yeah, it's just
I
they're a
think
soft team
I think
and
Mike McDaniel is gonna go to the Lions. Like they're gonna have a 2023 Eagles this year with the coordinators being gone. They're gonna bring in Mike McDaniel. McDaniel's gonna like learn from Dan
mm,
Campbell for like the culture perspective, and he's gonna get a second opportunity, and he's gonna knock it out of the park. That is my prediction.
that's a fun arc. I like that. I'm a fan of that. I put him in the hot seat.
Because the Dolphins are a fire.
Mike McDaniel should be a baseball manager. Like that his personality lends itself beautifully to a very fun baseball team. And in football, it leads you to fun when the weather is warm. And when it gets cold, no one wants to be there, and he doesn't draw enough out of them to try. Um, but I like that arc. I think it's a that's a fun arc for him. Mike Tomlin. It feels like
If we put him in mid, that feels
no,
disrespectful.
he cannot go in mid. No shot.
But if we put him
I
in
think
good, I feel like, dude, I feel like he's the butt of so many jokes. But if you think about it, though, like it's really the Steelers front office failing
yes,
repeatedly to get a competent offensive coordinator
and
and a
quarterback.
quarterback.
Yeah. No, I agree because the ability to go 9-8 every year and the joke of it all is absurdly impressive when you really take a look at the end of Ben slash post Ben offensive eras of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges and Kenny Pickett. Like it's slop, dude. It is
I have
straight
a
up slop.
conspiracy theory that the Steelers front office doesn't have the internet in their like building, and they only read magazines when they like build their offense. So because it just feels like they're so behind the times as
Yeah.
a team.
Yeah. Um Next name up, Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel's very
He's
good.
good.
I think he's very good. I think
He's
that
good.
yeah, I think the Titans made somewhat of a mistake letting him go. I think there was the total disconnect after AJ got traded, and yeah. Um, Nick, look at Nick.
He's got an elite resume.
He's got an elite resume. He's got an elite culture. He's got an elite situation that players want to be a part of. His
but
strategies
but
seem questionable at times. Even as good as they are, there are still some things that he does that I'm like, "Hey, man, why do we keep, like, why are we only sometimes aggressive? Why aren't we fully aggressive sometimes? Why do we get too cute sometimes? Like, why,
well, Michael, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this though. You see the only guy we have in elite right now.
Yeah.
A lot of the obviously Andy is more creative than Nick, but
I mean, he runs the offense.
when you look at some of those like questionable decision making, like dude, Andy was guilty of it as well. So,
Listen, we you see that all overlaps. Yeah. I'm
so
not gonna twist your arm wherever you put him.
we'll put him in elite.
Look at
Um,
me. You know, it's funny because when we did this after they lost the Super Bowl, uh, we put him in like A tier. And how soon after that, listen, I'll first admit it. I wanted this man fired
well,
uh,
me too.
as early as last year, like early in the season. I
Yeah,
was like, you know
you
what?
wanted Liam Cohen to replace him.
I did. I very much did. I was
You
sick.
said the name Michael. I think maybe like listen. I'm guilty of really bad takes too. I'm not trying to
Oh,
bust
listen, I got some stinkers for sure.
the Clint Kubiak.
Yeah, yeah, that's the big one. With Kubiak, I was like, that guy's the next, he's gonna save the
Well,
What he
look, I
was,
think
dude,
Clint
he
Kubiak
cooked
could
with
be a
Derek
head
Carr,
coach.
man.
He just where's
Clint
he? Where's
Kubiak,
where's Clint Kubiak at?
what Clint Kubiak did with the New Orleans Saints in those first 3 weeks was some of the most impressive stuff I've ever seen.
He is the Clint
Um,
Kubiak is the offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks. If
that's a
so,
fun narrative.
if Darnold
If
has
Darnold's
another good
cooking, man,
season, will we call him the Ghostbuster?
maybe. Pete Carroll,
Pete
he's
Carroll.
elite. I think he's elite. And
Yeah,
I
I
think it'll be
also
cemented
am I
after
going to be an ageist by saying because he's like 73 years old that like
there's a guy
the
later in
games
this
like
list.
passed him by a little bit.
There's a guy later in this list that is also, I think, elite that I think is very similar in terms of arcs. And I'm talking about Sean Payton, where it's like, is a head coach that has only one Super Bowl, feels like they kind of underachieved for the teams and the players that they had. And it was very easy to kind of kick them while they were down. You can not like them for whatever. and then they're out of coaching and they come back and they cook. And I feel like we can be ahead of the curve for what could be a surprisingly solid Raiders season.
I feel like you should be in good.
Pete Carroll has a
Like
lot
if
of
if
success.
I'm gonna slander John Harbaugh for being like, he's good, not elite anymore because he hasn't won a Super Bowl in a while. Like Pete Carroll last won a Super Bowl in like 2013, bro. Like the same time. Like it's
He's got a coaching record of 170 and 120. He's 500 in the playoffs, but as are essentially every NFL coach, um, besides like Belichick. I like maybe we should move up. Maybe we should move up John Harbaugh then.
yeah. Pull up John Harbaugh's career wins.
Nah, I didn't want to pull that up. John Harbaugh is 172 and 104.
All right,
Same amount of wins, 20 less losses.
we'll move him up there. That's fair.
Yeah, that is fair.
Okay, Raheem
But
Morris.
he coached a lot more. Raheem Morris, mid. I don't think he's on a hot seat. I think that
Yeah,
um, I think we got to see Penn. Like, I don't think it would be. I think it would be foolish of the Falcons for Raheem Morris. They're not moving off of Penix after this year. That was way too big of an investment to
yeah.
just quit it after one full season as a starter. Sean McDermott.
I think he's Michael. I think he's mid.
Yeah, if you asked me this like 3 years ago, I probably would have said he was good. If you asked me this two
He
years
is.
ago, I
He
probably would have
is.
said
I
he was
think he
good.
is the head coach most carried by his quarterback.
Yeah, like funny enough, I'm actually getting text. Nick is watching on NFL Network. They're currently airing the 2021 Chiefs Bills divisional game. The madness. Uh, Bills just scored on their 4th and 13 to go up by 3, and there's still the Tyreek Hill long touchdown, the Josh Allen go ahead touchdown with 13 seconds left, and then the field goal to tie. There's still so much left, and we're all under 2 minutes. They took the lead, and like this, Romo and Nance on the broadcast are like, and the first road playoff win for Josh Allen and Sean McDermott, and you know this game was about the elite quarterback play, and it looks like Josh Allen just outplayed Mahomes and all this sort of stuff. And then while the Chiefs have timeouts, just giving them the free chunks to get up to where they need to get up to. That's a war crime level defense. Like it's 13 seconds and the Chiefs have timeouts and you're acting like it was 2 seconds left and that was it. So there's a lot of collapses that Buffalo has had over the years, and I think that I'd put them in either the bottom of good or the top of mid.
I feel like if we put him in mid, it does feel a little
It was a little
disrespectful because
disrespectful
he's
for the
won a
guys
lot of
that are in
games.
there.
But
Yeah, he's won a lot.
I agree, but if I look at like Liam Cohen, if they fired McDermott and then hired Liam Cohen as their coach, I feel like there would be a sense of optimism that
Yeah.
they would like their offense would take the next step. And
Listen, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think it's fair. I think where we have it is fair.
okay,
McVay, I'd put him in
elite,
elite. Yeah,
elite.
put him in elite. He's just a machine, truly a machine.
I
Here we
do
go.
think though it's interesting with
Serious.
McVay, where everyone talks about him being this innovator when really he isn't. Like his offense isn't like super innovative. It's just that they execute it so well.
It's not as innovative anymore. Like I was actually Cooper Cup sat down recently doing a little interview. It was pretty interesting. and it was asking like, "Has defenses gotten better? Like, what's going on over your career?" And he goes, "I'll be honest. When I was," he was like, in like 2017, 2018 with McVay, he goes, he was cooking stuff up that defenses had no idea what to do. Like, we're running plays and everyone's wide open, and they had no idea how to stop it. And like that was like peak. This is an unstoppable offense that the league has not seen yet. And then he's like in 2019, that's when like Vic Fangio started to cook up with his scheme. And the following year, like he said, he gave a lot of credit to Brandon Staley taking over one of the top defenses in the NFL. And he's like, those two guys really kind of set the groundwork for how to stop that style of offense. And I think we're in search of the next level of offensive innovation. Like I don't think it's here yet. That's why I think we're seeing a bit of a revert to the run first offensive teams. With the Eagles, the Ravens, those teams running the ball a ton and having great success with it, the Lions. Uh, but I think that the extreme innovation of the McVay years, it's not like, oh, it's gone, but I think he's searching for something new. His scheme works, but it does not work to the clip that it did when he first got there.
Agreed.
Still elite though, because they have great success every year. Next guy, Sean Payton. I got to put him in elite, man. I don't like this guy. I hate this guy a lot, but damn it, what he did with Bo Nix was impressive, and he's got to get credit for it, honestly.
Well, Sean Payton, his mentor was Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells was known for turning around franchises very quickly when he got there.
Hmm.
And listen, Sean Payton's won a ton of games, but at the same time, though, Michael, we talk about how Mike McCarthy is partially responsible for why Aaron Rodgers has only won Super Bowl. The other person responsible for that is Aaron Rodgers.
Hmm.
But Michael, Drew Brees only has one Super Bowl. We're just gonna give Sean Payton like a hall pass on that? Like,
The Packers and the Saints really had similar peaks where it's like their defenses sucked at times.
yeah.
Drew Brees was throwing for 5,000 yards and losing like, they're going 7-9 in
Yeah,
games
they're
that
going. He's throwing for five
seasons that they
thousand
just
yards because
shouldn't.
they're like, it's like what happened with the Bengals this year with Joe Burrow.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But yeah. Um,
Shane Steichen here. Let me save you the trouble. Fired.
I was gonna put him in hot seat.
He should have been fired last year. They quit on him, Michael.
No, you can make the argument because
Their top draft
in
pick
my
quit
mind I was
during a
actually thinking
game.
hot seat, but when you look at the way the Colts have missed the playoffs the last couple years, a lot of it is in epic fashion. Like last year, you look at the last year, you look at I think of that Denver game where it was in Denver and Jonathan Taylor drops the ball before crossing the goal line for a touchdown. Those are the sort of things that happen when you're not when you're not like when you're not locked in. Like not to, say they weren't trying
Well,
or weren't
Michael,
caring or whatever.
what's even well? Here's something more egregious. They got cooked by Drew Lock.
No, yeah, I was gonna get there.
Oh, my
Like
bad.
it started with like that Denver game where it was like, this is a pivotal game. We were at that point in the year where it's like, oh, if the Colts win out and the Broncos lose out, the Colts can steal that playoff spot. And it started with the Colts needing to beat the Broncos, and then they had to play the Giants and then whoever. And when your best player, who is a damn good player, by the way, drops the ball ahead of the goal line. Like, it's like we can't even conceive of A.J. Brown or Saquon Barkley or Jalen doing that. And that's just talking about preparation and stuff. And I think as great as Steichen was here, and as good as his scheme may still be, he definitely lacks that Nick Sirianni attitude and culture building that the Eagles have kind of perfected at this point, where when you're making mistakes like that, where it's just dumb, super easily preventable, it's not like a drop pass. It's a I'm dropping the football before I cross the goal line, and then I'm going to try to run a trick play that's going to get intercepted for a touchdown back the other way. Like it's pretty embarrassing to collapse in that sort of way, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's not good. And like then getting absolutely thrashed by Drew Lock and the Giants with the season on the line. Like it just they quit for sure. Yeah, probably should have been fired. Um, Todd Bowles,
I
want to
don't
put him in mid.
understand. I don't understand why they only win 10 games everywhere. And their offense scores so many points, and their defense forces so many turnovers.
Yeah, I want to put him in mid, but like I wouldn't be mad. I'd put him in a very most polite hot seat I could ever think of. Like
What do
if
you you,
Tampa,
you think Tampa just wants to get like a fresh young offensive coach?
I think that if Tampa misses the playoffs this year and has like a down season, like they win like 7 games and it's kind of ugly, I could see them being like, "You know what? You've been carried by some pretty good offensive coordinators the last couple years. Like I think we need to we need to shift um
I think
to
Todd
try
Bowles is a
to."
really good coach, though.
Okay. Then
I
mid,
mean, I mean, if you look at those
good.
games that they lost in the playoffs, Michael, I hate to say it, Baker just kind of didn't turn up in those games, and we're
Baker
like,
choked, man. That fumbled whatever on the handoff like totally cost
that's
them the
Todd
game.
Bowles' fault. Like, is it like sort of
No.
like where it's like we're like Baker, we need you to play, we need you to lock in, and you can't be making mistakes. Like, I hate to say it, Michael, Baker might be that quarterback though, who is going to be successful if he has like an elite running game where he's not going to screw up. It's going to limit
Like
his ability to screw up.
Todd Bowles as a head coach went 10-6 his first year as the Jets head coach. They missed the playoffs um, in 2015. Then he went 5-11, 5-11, 4-12. Then he was fired. Then he was a D coordinator under Bruce Arians um, for their Super Bowl. And then since taking over as head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, went 8-9 before losing in the playoffs to the Cowboys at home. 9-8 before losing to the Lions in the divisional round, and then 10-7, and then losing in the wild card at home to the Commanders. His track record like isn't great. I think
I
he's
feel like
better
his
suited as a
ability.
coordinator.
He's the only like defensive guy to figure out Jalen Hurts,
I think he's a
and
better
that's like
coordinator.
it does, and it honestly does kind of feel like like the Eagles play Tampa again. Everyone's gonna pick against the Eagles in that game, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles win. You know,
I mean, listen, the Eagles killed him in 2023 in the regular season. I think people forget that. I I think he just might be better as a coordinator. Like those Tampa teams when
yeah, because
Arians was the head coach was
if
pretty
you look at
good.
the mid coaches, I said Dable's probably going to need to be a coordinator again.
Yeah.
You know? Raheem Morris, really good,
It's
really great coordinator.
it's like jury's out on him as a head coach. We got to see.
This Mike McDonald, not gonna lie, watch some of the Seahawks like stuff. He like painted over all the murals they had of like Marshawn and
Ooh,
like Richard Sherman saying like, "Oh, we got to stop focusing on the past. We got to focus on the future."
not great
Alienating.
stuff there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that works if you're winning, I suppose, or if you're an established guy. Jury's out. McDonald was a great defensive coordinator.
Most of the guys in mid here, the juries are still out on. And it's like I feel like we know what Bowles is, and I just don't think it's good.
Yeah, we're gonna put him in mid.
Yeah.
All right, here
Mm.
we go. And
Zach Taylor.
I think he should be fired. But the Bengals won't do it. And I'm going to tell you why.
I will give him some credit. I do think he's grown on me since the early Bengal days. I When they went to the Super Bowl and stuff, I was like, "This guy sucks. Might be one of the worst coaches ever. Go to a Super Bowl." I was such a heavy anti Zach Taylor. And as the years have gone on, I do think that as an offensive mind, he's gotten better. I think he's found what works and he sticks with it. Uh, I do think the culture thing might be a bit of an issue, and I think a lot of it does fall in the front office though with contract issues where it seems like everybody on the team has contract issues. And I guess I got to give him some credit for being able to stay through that, but at the same time, I think there's still stuff to be desired. I think I'd put him in the hot seat.
I'm going to put him in the hot seat as well, Michael. To me, like so when you look at the Eagles versus the Bengals, and this could be, I mean, listen, a lot of these coaches that we have in the hot seat, they have bad GMs or front offices to support them.
Yes.
Bad GM, Andrew Berry, bad ownership, really. I
Bad
think Andrew
ownership mostly.
ownership, ownership, bad GM, ownership, bad GM, ownership, bad GM. Team in transition. Not very stable, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing with Taylor though. When you watch the Eagles Bengals last year, we talk about what's the big thing with the Eagles culture. They're always extremely prepared for games with film,
Mhm.
right? 4th and 1. What are the Bengals calling 4th and 1? I think it was the pivotal moment of the game.
I mean, they tried to,
Jamar Chase, swing pass to Jamar Chase. Eagles, it was literally, it goes in motion. It was literally, it's kind of those things where us as fans, when it happens to us, we're like, oh my God, everybody in the stadium knew what you were trying to do, and it backfired. And even in that game too, Michael, like you saw times where they were like running the ball and the Eagles, they're getting some yards with
Mhm.
Chase Brown. They abandoned the run, you know. Like Gesicki made some really nice circus catches for them. And their defense got cooked by the Eagles because their defense stinks. And it was a game where it was a must win game for Cincinnati. The Eagles
Mhm.
could have dropped that game on the road. It wouldn't have been like a huge deal if they lost to a desperate Bengal team. And that's where I think coaches are you're not a good head coach.
Yeah.
Like we'd always talk about with Andy Reid when the Eagles were in like a must win game, like they had to win this game to stay in the playoffs or be in the playoff hunt. The Eagles, more often than not, would win those games. That's what separates the good coaches from the bad coaches, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
that's our tier list, guys, and that's it for the show today.
yes.
I don't know. Like, I was thinking for next week, instead of maybe necessarily doing X's and O's, we could do our yearly football uniform ranking. See if our fashion
Oh,
tastes
that feels like a
changed
that
over.
feels like a split list. I feel like that's hard to share a brain for.
Well, we can argue it's like the
There's a lot
Raiders
less objective
uniforms.
truths. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
it's very.
But all right. Yeah, we'll think of something. But
We'll take it.
anyways,
Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take it easy, everybody.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.